So we kick off our brand new content series called On the Line, and we're going to do it in style, as the Vikings Entertainment Network always tries to do, and we're going to do it with ESPN insider Adam Schefter. You can catch his work on TV at ESPN, of course at ESPN.com, and on Twitter at Adam Schefter. You can also check out Adam's podcast, the Adam Schefter Podcast, ESPN.com/ESPN Radio/podcast. He's got a bunch of good stuff up there as well. So, Adam, welcome to On the Line, and thank you for your time, man. We appreciate it.
Mike, honored to be the first guest for On the Line. I feel a little bit like Kyle Rudolph scoring the first touchdown at U.S. Bank Stadium. And even though I've never played the line, I'm happy to be on the line.
Okay, well, good. And hopefully hopefully fans will think of this product like they think of touchdowns. Hopefully they like what we're about to give them. What is interesting about the Minnesota Vikings right about now?
Well, you have a change in staff, and I think you've brought in all these coaches that I used to know back in the day who were part of the Broncos teams that won Super Bowls in back-to-back years. You got Gary Kubiak, Brian Periani, and Clint Kubiak now. And so this is a decorated staff that's quite accomplished and knows what it's doing and will do a great job for the Vikings. And I think that, listen, it was tragic when the Vikings lost Tony Sparano last year, and that goes well beyond football. But if we're going to talk about it from a football perspective, I don't know that they were ever able to replace him. And I think getting these guys in from a football standpoint is about as well as you could do to try to replace a legend like that.
Yeah.
So Gary is great, and they're all great, and they'll do a tremendous job for the Vikings, and I think the Vikings offense will be in good shape because of it.
Yeah, and I think one element of missing Tony Sparano, not just from an offensive line perspective, but how about just Mike Zimmer sitting down with another coach who's been through a lot of battles? I think Coach Zimmer might have missed that in terms of his relationship with Coach Sparano, but he gains that, right, with Gary Kubiak, who's also been through a lot of battles.
Gary's a classy man, truly just a really nice guy, and I'm sure they know each other well, and I'm sure they've gone through many battles. And again, I think Gary will be an asset to Mike, to the Vikings, to the offense, to Kirk Cousins. You think about Gary learning everything that he did from Mike Shanahan, those two being as close as they are. Well, Mike and Kirk Cousins are incredibly close. There's no way that Gary could be that close to Mike and Kirk could be that close to Mike, and Gary and Kirk couldn't get along famously.
Yeah. And another resource for Kevin Stefanski, too, who's in his first year as an offensive coordinator in the National Football League, and will have another great, valuable resource at his disposal in Gary Kubiak. So that's another good part of it. Adam, the Vikings, obviously, I think their identity as a team is probably their defense, which since Mike Zimmer has arrived in 2014 has risen to be one of the best in the league. Do you think a team can still win that way in today's NFL with the rules the way they are, with the four teams in conference title games all being in the top four in total offense? Do you think a team with a defensive identity can succeed in 2019 and beyond?
Yeah, listen, I think the deeper you get in the season, how did the Patriots win in Kansas City?
Well, I mean, Tom Brady did Tom Brady things, but they also played pretty good defense.
Great defense, ran the football, did what they had to. To me, that's what's supposed to happen this late. And there are a lot of ways to win, and offense is the flavor of the year, and we know that we love, high-flying offenses. But, this gets back to fundamentals. And I think the Vikings absolutely can win.
When the Vikings signed Kirk Cousins at last offseason, a lot of people were hoping for that jump up in points per game to which would take a lot of pressure off the Vikings defense. But what didn't happen was, the team's identity changing to an offensive identity. The team's identity is still its defense. And I think you can sort of make the argument that with rules changing to favor the offense, it's not that everyone should try and focus on becoming an offensive-minded team. It might not ever have been more important to be a good defense than it is right now. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, one of the reasons the Rams are in this Super Bowl is because their defense played better down the stretch. It played really strong against Dallas. It played really strong in New Orleans against the Saints. And I know these were some of the lowest-rated defenses in the conference championship round in terms of where they ranked in the NFL. But you just can't tell me that a good defense is unimportant. Look at Kansas City, okay? The defense was on the field when the Patriots won the toss and couldn't slow them and stop them and hold them to a field goal. So, defense matters. It still matters. Maybe it's lost some of its significance, but it still matters.
All right, last one. I'm going to get you out of here on this. I want to close with a note about your career, Adam. It was in August of 2009 when you made the switch from NFL Network to ESPN, which coincidentally was the same time that the Vikings got Brett Favre to come out of quasi-retirement and play for them. So I want to ask you, because that was a pivotal moment, or at least a significant moment in your career, but also a significant moment for a lot of folks who are watching and listening. What do you remember about August of 2009 when you sort of blend what was going on with your career and what was going on with Brett Favre and the Vikings, which was certainly the biggest NFL news story of that year?
I remember being on my way to work for my very first morning of ESPN responsibilities. And I remember being on the highway and getting a call how fast you could get here because apparently Brett Favre was in the air on the way to Minnesota.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's something that I remember from my very, very first morning on the job at ESPN, and we were off and running. And I'll tell you a funny little story about that. We did hits about Brett Favre going to the Vikings all day, informational updates, obviously, throughout the course of the day. We did Brett Favre all that day. The next day, Wednesday morning, I was scheduled to have my orientation for ESPN, my orientation at ESPN that every employee is mandated to go through. And it was set up for about 8 or 9 that morning, and I showed up for orientation. And literally, as soon as I walked in, the story came back that Plexico Burress had been suspended, I think is what it was. And the long story short is I'll be at ESPN 10 years this summer. It feels like 100 in a good way, but it feels like I've never been anywhere else. I've been at ESPN 10 years this August, and I still have never gone through orientation, Mike.
And you've somehow made it. You've survived.
I've survived.
Yeah.
Here I am, yes. So if there's anything that I need to know about the company policies or how things are done around there, I guess they'll have to teach me on the fly. I never got orientated to ESPN, and I continue to just try to make my way every day.
Yeah, it's because you're a grinder. That's what we try to do here too. And we grinded our way through the first installment of On the Line, and this one was On the Line with Adam Schefter. So you're a busy man, Adam, and we appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You too, Adam. See ya.